So it's that time of the week again. It's you hangout time, and this is kind of take two, round two. So last week I was joined by Walter, and it just failed miserably. So hopefully we'll try again and get this going. But how are you, Walter?
Yeah, doing fine, thanks.
Good, good. So as always, we kind of do some kind of Q&A. So kind of how did you get involved with Embraco?
Well, when I joined the company, we recently started picking up on Embraco. We had our own CMS internally, which we developed, which we used for all our websites. One of our colleagues said, like, hey, there's this really cool new CMS coming out. It's really easy to use and configure. And we said, like, hey, let's try it out. And we started using it for our first website. And basically, ever since then, we've been using it for all our sites. So
okay, so a while now, maybe 3-4 years.
Yeah, about 4.5, 5, something like that.
Okay, nice. So now that you guys use it a lot, it sounds like picking up from kind of last week, but you've built kind of Perplex Mail. Is that what we're going to talk about today? Perplex Mail, is that it?
Yeah, so we've developed an internal package called Perplex Mail, which is basically a package that handles emailing for websites. And yeah, we figured, we've always been building the same component for the website over and over and over again. And we decided, like, hey, maybe we can make some standard package that everyone can use.
Yep. Awesome. So it's to do with dealing with emails for sites that we build.
Yeah, basically what we call action emails. You submit a form, some information needs to be sent to a customer or to a client. Yep. Basically, that's what it's mainly focused on.
Okay. Nice. So I know that I mentioned this last week, but if you've been using this kind of a lot internally as a project, why now decide to release it as a kind of open source project? Why now, I suppose?
Well, we started building the package for Embraco 7. It started off in Embraco 6, and as we were building it, we kind of wanted to really get an edge on the package, like, how can we make it nicer? And a couple of months ago, we went to Code Garden in Denmark, and there was a presentation on, how to build your own package, how to make it better, and the point they really wanted to get across is, the community can really help you out to make it better, find bugs, maybe think of ways to use the package that you otherwise wouldn't think about. So we've really invested a lot of energy in the past couple of months to make sure the package is ready for public use.
Awesome.
And that's what.
So was that kind of you guys' first Code Garden then?
It was my first Code Garden.
Okay.
Some of my colleagues were there before. They went last year too, but this was my first one.
Okay, so I presume the talk given by kind of is it Matt Brailsford and Lee Kelleher that gave that talk in regards to driven stuff. So that's back off that talk has kind of inspired you and the rest of the team to kind of push this forward and make it something open source.
Yeah, it was a really nice session and was really learned a lot.
Okay.
I mean, they've built a lot of packages already, and we've been able to really take that knowledge that they've been able to build up, and it really helped us out.
Awesome. So let's just jump straight in and let's take a look at kind of what Perplex Mail can do for us then.
Yeah. So I've prepared a small demo installation. I'll pop it up now, and it's basically an empty Embraco install. With just the Perplex Mail package. When you install it for the first time, you basically get one node, one content node, Perplex Mail, which basically contains all the stuff you need to make it run. And in it is also a bunch of templates and emails. Basically, the way we wanted to set it up is when you send out your emails from websites, you tend to really have a general template that you use for multiple emails, like contact emails, quotes you want to send out, etc. So that's really what the template is used for, as it's called here, the basic template. And it can be used for the actual emails you send out. So the emails themselves contain the content, while the template contains the markup of the email you're trying to send out. We can take a quick peek at the template itself. Basically, it just contains the raw HTML and the CSS, that we're used to. It's nothing fancy. Generally speaking, we have like a designer that makes the templates for us.
Okay.
And yeah.
So the template there, is just a kind of, this is the raw HTML for the template email.
Yep.
So they can just literally work away from Umbraco in their favorite editor, and then come back and kind of paste what they need to paste into this kind of template box.
Yeah, we've actually really gone through several stages of the template forms, and what we really noticed was when we were trying to make it easier to enter HTML and CSS, we really noticed our developers really like to work with their own editors, and there was really not much point in forcing them to use something we've custom built for them. They just want to do their own thing. So we just tell them like, hey, if you have a nice template, you can put it in here with your CSS, and that's all you need to know.
Cool. It's
pretty straightforward.
So I think I mentioned again, last week, and just recalling stuff as we go along. So how do I kind of customize the template to pick up stuff from, I presume, what I'm going to send out in my email?
Yeah, so basically the way it works is the emails, the action emails, they tend to have really one location where your content is placed, like the header or whatever. And basically we've used a tag for that. It's a content tag, which you can see right here. It's basically, the tag itself is hard-coded, but you can place it anywhere in the HTML that you want. And basically the package knows, okay, I'm going to take the template, I'm going to take the content of the email, and I'm going to render it in the content tag. So it replaces the tag, and that's exactly how it renders.
Awesome.
So if you were to look at the email itself, because the main thing is really you have the content in the template, but a lot of the times, it's all about making sure the content gets placed in the email and personalized. And the tag that you saw just now, the content tag, is actually something we use for the entire email itself as well. If you just look at the email itself, you have the content tab, you have the basics, the template that you select, and the body, which is obviously the most important part. This is just where, even a content manager can just type in any content that he wants. And the way we really personalize it is with the same tags, which I'll get more into later. But basically, the tags get used to specify what kind of labels you want to place in your email. They get generated, for example, when you're sending out an email, the tags like first name, last name, they get parsed and then replaced. So it basically does a lot of things on the fly, but you can customize a lot as well, which is kind of important because you want to keep everything in Umbraco as much as possible. We don't want to keep anything from the people managing the emails. So it's, if you look at the code as well that you're writing, there's actually not much code involved at all to make sure the emails get sent out.
Awesome.
So yeah, going over the emails, one of the things we really like about the package is, of course, emails are pretty basic. You have them for all your sites, but we've, when we've been building the package for our customers, because they always want to have emails in their websites, for example, and each time they have a different feature request. Like we want to make sure that when an email gets sent out, I want to make sure I can see in the CMS who has sent out the email. I want to make sure it's secure. So that's really one of the things that we've been trying to work on, to keep the email the email system basic, but make it really rich in features. To make sure that you don't really have to worry about the basics too much. So one of the primary things really that the email package is about is really the logging of the emails. If I'm just going to take over a quick peek at the logging tab, the statistics tab, we've built in a little dashboard as well. So basically what happens is when an email gets sent out, it automatically takes the email and says, okay, it's going to get sent out at this time, etc. All the parameters for the email itself get logged into the database automatically. And it gets encoded as well, etc. And basically, whenever I send out an email, I can immediately see in the back office, like when did it get sent to who, what is the status of the email, kind of all the juicy details you really want to know. And one of the things in the initial versions, we really had just the basic logging, like, okay, I want to see when an email gets sent out.
Yep.
But then we had a customer say, well, I also want to know if an email gets read, or if someone clicks on the link, or if something went wrong. So there's really a lot of stuff in the dashboard. If you just look at the overview, you see, for every email that gets sent out, you get a new record. It displays which emails get sent out, what the status is that you can see right here. You can even see a preview of the email, which is fairly convenient if you want to see what is actually the content of the email. Did it get sent out correctly?
Okay.
You can have a little preview of the email itself, which basically just renders the template with the content, which is personalized, which shows the details as well.
Okay, very, very nice. So next to the first record, you've got kind of viewed, I presume. So as soon as the email is opened, you've got some kind of tracking GIF pixel something in there that allows it to know that the email was viewed. But you've also got the error there. So was that an error that the email was sent, or why? So how can an email be viewed and have an error?
Well, that's actually something I put in there myself to just display the error tag. But yeah, you're right. Usually when you have an error, generally speaking, it means the mail didn't get sent. So it says like couldn't find SMTP or whatever. But basically you have an error, or
So would that also involve things like bounce backs and things like that?
No. The thing is, the tracking statistic, the tracking module is fairly rudimentary, because it works with a pixel tracking, like you mentioned. Basically, a pixel gets embedded in the email, and as soon as someone opens the email, the image gets loaded from the server. However, that means the person that's viewing the email has to actually allow images to be loaded. So this is kind of dependent on the software you're using to read the email.
Yep.
Sometimes it gets blocked, so it's not exactly bulletproof. And yeah, the stats, it's a little bit complicated. There are sometimes servers that send you back like, hey, someone has just seen your mail, or it has been bounced. These are like extra features that we still want to build in, but they're not really something that are in current version.
Okay. But at a first glance, this is very rich in terms of being able to see who's received what and if it's been seen. So yeah, I can see in this be very, very useful. So have you tested this with, obviously you put this in the field and kind of battle tested it with your own clients. How does this handle in terms of say, I don't know, let's say, for example, a registration email or a forgotten password email, if I was to use it for something like that, that's something that obviously gets used quite a lot in terms of sending emails out. How does the load, so to speak, because obviously that would be a frequently sent email in terms of login, in terms of that, can this kind of overview kind of deal with maybe an email that's going to have a ton more data, so to speak?
Yeah, so we've also built in paging into the view, so you can select how many you want to see. I'll take the other email example here. Let's see if it already has the paging. Yeah, so if you look at this email here, we've been sending out a few more emails, and you can see here it gets a bit big, but at the bottom we have nice paging, so we get 10 emails per page. So you can just go over all the pages, and you can always filter, for example, by date or by state. If I want to say, well, I only want to see emails that have an error, then I'm going to see only emails with an error. So generally speaking, really, when you look here, you're really looking for something specific. So
okay, very, very nice. So with each of these kind of, at the end, I can see obviously view, resend. So if I presume I click resend, it's going to resend the email. Would that also then put a new item into the kind of this login or row? So if I click resend, is that going to then add a new row?
Yeah, so if I were to enter my email address, it will send out the email directly. So it sends out the entire email. So it's not going to do some new rendering or parsing. It just takes the email as it is logged into the database. and sends it to the email address, and it gets logged again. But for example, when a customer calls and says, "Hey, I didn't get this email. It's kind of important." You can just go here, say, "Okay, resend," and then we're done.
Okay.
Yeah, another kind of handy feature is the Outlook button. Often we work in.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was just about to ask, what is this kind of Outlook button? Obviously, you're talking in regards to email software, but
yeah,
what does it do?
Well, basically, when you click on the Outlook button, it sends the email as an EML file to you, which then can be opened in, for example, your Outlook program. If we were to look here, I can see the email as it has been sent. So I can basically say, okay, reply. Okay, there we go. And I can just edit the email myself and say, hey, here's some extra content, and send it away. Yeah, so it's really made just little extra feature to make the lives of the people that are managing the CMS, that are in there every day, just to make their lives a little bit easier.
No, definitely. So just to interject, we've got a couple of questions coming in, so I think it's probably best that we take them as we go along.
Sure.
So Mike Lazetsu, I think I've got that right. He says, awesome question about how PerplexMail would react to a frequent amount of emails, but can we also create custom replace tags like the forgotten password example? So I presume Mike's referring to, if we created a forgotten password email, could we have a custom tag that is hello Mike or whatever, and then we could put in a custom tag that is, I don't know, square brackets forgotten password, and we could kind of merge that with our forgotten password recovery system.
Well, I mean, the thing you can do is basically the tags. If you look here, for example, it says name. Like, this is basically just a string.
Yep.
And in your code, when you call the email, all you do is basically say, okay, this string or this tag needs to contain this string. So, for example, it just contains a name. But you could also just say, okay, we're going to put HTML in here because I want to render a dynamic table, for example. So you're pretty free to.
Okay, so it's just a very basic kind of string replacement type thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So whenever I call, a certain email, so if the forgotten password example, I can give it any tag I want. I presume square bracket hash forgotten password. Yep. And then when I call that email, as long as I say this parameter is equal to this value, then that's the rest will kind of do it by itself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can define any tags you want. You should generally make them easy to remember. Maybe even put them in the description, like say which tags are available. But you can basically make anything you want.
Okay, very, very nice. Another quick question as we go along. Christian Schneider asks, would this work with something like Mandrill.com, or is it just on top of a dedicated SMTP server?
No, basically, what the package does is it looks in your web config and says, hey, do you have any information for me on where I need to send this email, like the default SMTP settings? So if you configure your machine to use a different SMTP, a server, an external server, anything, you could just configure that. The email package is not really about that.
Okay. So any SMTP server that can send out an email, this will work with then?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I think that's it for questions for now. So let's just carry on.
Yeah. So as far as custom personalization goes, there's another thing that we've really been using quite a lot as well. Sometimes you have like different texts that you only want to have visible in certain scenarios. For example, you can have a form that says type is quote or type is contact. I have different types of forms, and depending on which type is picked, you want to display different piece of text. Basically, the way we've solved that is by using the tag again. If you look here, it says if hashtag name is Wouter, then display this piece of text.
Okay, so you got some very basic if-else kind of logic here.
Yeah, so it's nothing super fancy, but it is basically a basic if-else structure, and you can do an inverted if as well if you want to do the opposite.
Okay, nice. So I presume it's only string comparison because
Yeah,
the token really is just a string at the end of the day.
yeah. At the moment, it's just basic strings that you have to work with.
Okay, nice. But that's nice, like you say. You could create a contact form that has a drop down for different departments that you want to contact, and depending on that value that comes through, you could modify the contents of that email and send it to the correct department.
Yeah, for example, something like that. I mean, we could do really fancy if-else nested statements, but the average content manager isn't really going to be able to figure that stuff out so
No,
easily.
true.
Um,
With that being said, is it possible to kind of change the recipient? So obviously, say I've got a contact form set up on my site, and I want this contact form to go to different people depending on a certain drop-down value. Is that plausible? Possible?
yeah. So basically, the way it works is that you have the tag, but the tags don't only get used in the body; they also get parsed in, for example, the subject, as you see here.
Yep.
Dynamic subject. But also, if we look at the settings tab, you can basically specify
Awesome.
where your email is going to go. And as you can see in the to address, we can actually specify a tag as well. And what I can say is, hey, if I send this email, also pass on this tag with this email address value. So the logic for determining which email address you want to use is done in your own code. But
Yep.
once you pass it on to us, we say, okay, we're going to send it to this email address with this name. So,
Okay, awesome. Brilliant. Thank you very much. That was awesome. So just can we just quickly go through some of these tabs then? Because I don't think we've actually seen. So obviously content is obviously the kind of the subject and the email content.
yeah, it contains the email, the subject, the body, and you can set an attachment as well. You can basically pick any item in your Embraco section, and it gets sent with the email as well. So that's pretty basic.
That's nice.
We have the alternative text version. Some devices don't really render HTML too well.
Yep.
You can specify your custom text here, and it just gets sent out like that. You can use your Perplex mail tags here as well. And the devices that receive the email will know, okay, hey, there's text version, so I'm going to display that instead. With the settings tab, like I said, from to the basic email settings.
Yep.
The other feature is a testing email. So basically, when you're testing out, you're setting up your email for the first time, and you really want to make sure it's rendered correctly. What you can do is you can specify the tags that you want to use here. So for example, the comment tag needs to be test comment, etc. You can just specify as many as you want. And you can just send it to yourself.
Okay, so that allows you to, put in what the tag and the value is. Okay, yeah, very, very nice.
Yeah. So you just send it to yourself, and the package basically just takes the email and renders it and sends it to you. So that's pretty nifty. Then the statistics tab, I already covered that pretty much.
What's the difference between the statistics and the login tab that we're going to see next?
Yeah, so the statistics tab is really just a dashboard for what is currently in the database. So that's really just a pickup from that. And the logging tab is really a way to configure how your emails are logged. Sometimes you don't want to have certain things logged in your database. For example, say you have an email that sends out passwords to users. You really don't want that sort of stuff to be in your database, even if it's encoded.
Yep.
It's just not really kosher. So basically you can say, hey, this email has to be disabled. Another feature is you can say, hey, I want to make sure that this email stays in the database for only 1 month. And after that, it has to be purged.
Okay, so is that a roll-in 1 month? Or is it, if that makes sense, 1 month from today, or
yeah, 1 month from today. It constantly checks like, hey, do I have any old emails? And I'll send them. Yeah. So one of the things is you can set it up per email. But we said, hey, we also want to make sure we can have global settings, because sometimes some settings apply to all your emails, so you don't want to have to set it up per email. So for example, if you always have a default from email address, you can just specify it in the global tab in the emails root itself. And basically all the settings that get put here get applied to all your emails. But if you still enter, like, for example, a reply to address in the email itself, that one gets used instead. But if it says, hey, I don't have any standard settings, it will fall back to the root. So that's this one.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, the global statistics, basically the same as the regular statistics tab, with the difference that in the global tab, all your emails get put together here. So if you have 10 emails, it will show all of them here.
Yeah.
Says that. And yeah, the logging expiration as well, which you can set up globally.
Okay, very, very nice. Cool. I'm impressed so far.
So yeah, that's basically the main parts of the package itself. And lately we've also been working quite a bit with the Umbraco Forms, so I kind of wanted to segue a little bit into that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so Umbraco Forms, for those that don't know, is really a handy module that you can install in any of your new Umbraco installations. It's in the tab on the left. If you're in a fresh installation, it will ask you to install it. And basically, it's a way to really have dynamic, rich forms set up in your Umbraco, which you can then render at the front of your site. So I've made a little example for this. And basically, what we've done is say, hey, if you submit a form, we want to make sure that if you have a Perplex Umbraco installed, you can actually say, hey, I want this email, this Perplex email to be sent out whenever a form is submitted, which is done by using a workflow. So for those that have used it before, you can say, hey, these are the actions that need to take place when the email gets sent. We've built a custom workflow for this. If you install the package, and you can install the workflow as well, you get an extra option here in the type list. It says, hey, instead of send email, which is the default one you get, you have the send Perplex mail, which basically sends out the Perplex mail instead. So the mail package basically picks up the request to send out the email.
Okay.
So if I give a little example of that, say I use this email. Normally speaking, you can customize your tags, but the way it works with the Umbraco Forms is that the aliases and the labels get generated for you. So if I take the example that I had just now with the title, etc., if I render that on the front, it looks something like this. So you have your basic title, your name, your email. That, you know, those are the things I've configured. And behind the submit button is the workflow to make sure that the email gets sent out. So if I just do a little test, I send it to myself. Hello. Submit. So basically, I hit submit, and Umbraco Form says, hey, Perplex email, pick up this email and do something with it. So the email gets sent out, and let's see, it's in here. Let's view it. So as you can see, the content has actually been generated automatically. It says title, name. Those are the entries I've submitted just now. Yep. If I were to actually look in the Umbraco Forms email, it actually just says forms auto-generate. So what did it do? It actually just took all the entries, all the fields you've submitted, and automatically generated a layout for you. And just
so I think it generates a very simple basic table, as far as I remember off the top of my head. When Umbraco Forms sends out an email, it just generates a very basic table with the label of the field and then its value.
Yeah, they do that as well. It's basically the same thing. Yeah, exactly. They just get put one after another.
So I can just use that, and that would render whatever is in the form just in this email here.
Yeah, but you don't have to use it that way, because you often want to personalize it in a certain way, like you maybe want to have some flavor text, etc. So the auto-generate tag is really if you want to just have basic email sent out. But you could actually also just say, hey, no, I don't want to use the auto-render tag. I just want to have control over where the text gets placed and how it's marked up. And basically, the aliases get generated automatically. So, for example, if I was to take a look at the form itself, for example, I have a field called name. Umbraco says, hey, I'm going to generate an alias name for you. So when it gets sent out, the alias name is available to the Perplex Mail package with the value that you've submitted. So the name tag is actually available in here as well, even though I haven't written any code.
Okay.
If we were to actually look in the email itself, it says here custom name Wouter. If I were to actually look into the code, if I can just have a brief segue to the demo code, basically to render an Umbraco form, you basically just say, hey, which form do I want to render, and render it right here. This is actually the only code that is used to send out this email. I haven't done anything else. There's no hidden code anywhere. Basically, the workflow makes sure it gets sent out.
Fantastic. So as long as I set up that workflow item, then Perplex Mail will hand it off.
Yep.
So just can you go back to the workflow item? Was you selecting what template you wanted to use?
Yeah. So
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to make sure you have to specify which template you want to use, or which email you want to use to send out.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Let's see. Yeah. So the other thing the Perplex Mail package does is secure logging, which we briefly covered earlier. But basically, generally speaking, every time an email gets sent out, it gets logged into the database. But sometimes you don't want to have the text clearly, human readable in the database. So you want to make sure it's encoded. So when someone gets a hold of your database, you want to make sure they can't just, pick up on all the content and do something evil with it, basically. Yeah. So by default, we actually encrypt all the data that's in the database. If we actually were to look into the database quickly, take a peek, you actually get...
Awesome. So even like the to and the from, which is probably what would probably be most malicious, what someone else would probably really want to do is grab those email addresses, but it's nice to see that they're, I presume, hashed or salted or whatever you've done.
Yeah, both, encrypted and salted. And basically, the default is really to encrypt it. Basically, every column that has useful information is encrypted. But you don't have to encrypt it if you want. You can also say, hey, I don't want to encrypt emails by default. This is all configurable for the package. For example, there's one record here where I've disabled the encryption for, and you can see it's just clearly visible.
Yep.
If I were to, because the way it works is it's encrypted, but in order to decrypt it, a key is required.
I was just about to say that. Yeah. I presume the key is anything I want it to be set to. So if I it's unique to my installation or setup, so it's not the same key for every setup. So if someone figured out the key for Perplex Mail, for example, they can decrypt my code or decrypt my data from the database.
Yeah, so the keys actually get generated for you the first time you install the package. Okay. They get put into the webconfig file. If we take a very quick look at the config, you get a bunch of keys. For example, the encryption key is generated and used only for your installation.
Okay, if you were to lose on installation, it just generates a random key.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. So if someone gets hold of this key, they could potentially decrypt it. But if you lose the key, then you also won't be able to
decrypt it anymore.
Decrypt it anymore. Exactly.
No, that's a nice security feature because I know. Where I work currently, that would be a big security concern in terms of storing sensitive data and customer data in their database. So if it can be encrypted and sorted, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's we have had quite a few customers that had exactly that same request. Like, hey, we have a lot of important customers who want to make sure when something happens that our information is not on the street somewhere. We want to make sure it's protected.
Yeah. So just run me through some of these other application settings that are in the web config.
Yeah, so basically the key and the vector bytes, they both get used to encrypt and decrypt your information.
Yep.
So that's pretty default. You have a hashing key. This is basically used to track statistics for your emails. You don't have to change this one per se, but this way you can make sure that people can't guess. You know, when you have a tracking event, they can't like fake that sort of things.
Yep.
Yeah, disable logging. So basically allows you to say, hey, if I put this on true, logging is globally disabled. So nothing gets logged into the database.
Yep.
Disable enable encryption speaks for itself. If you set this to true, all the information in your database is clearly readable. There's an attachments folder as well. I suppose this one requires a bit more explanation. So when you send out an email, like I showed earlier, you can actually pick an attachment. And this is just an Umbraco attachment. So it's already physically present on your disk. So it gets sent out and basically just takes that image and sends it out. But there's also scenarios where you generally dynamically generate content. For example, a PDF, which has personalized information, which I can show that in a moment. Basically, you can also send attachments dynamically with your emails. And what it does is when you send it out, it says, hey, this is currently not stored anywhere. And it basically stores the attachment in a file or in a folder that you choose. And when you look back later, you can always open the same email again, and it will still have the same attachment.
Okay.
You can, for example, resend it again as well. And the last key, disable the storage. It says it already by itself. If you disable the storage, then emails won't get, or the attachments for the emails won't get stored separately if they're dynamic emails.
Okay. Brilliant. So maybe you can run me through maybe the first scenario of that my email. I've got a custom form. I've built a typical form in Razor. It submits to my controller, and I now want to fire off an email to using PerplexMail. How would I go about doing that?
Yeah, so if we look at a small example here, basically the way it works is PerplexMail exposes a class email, which contains all the stuff you need to send out an email. So if we look at this small example here, it says the email node to send out, which is basically the node ID of the email itself. You specify optionally the tags that you want to use. So for example, we see here, I've specified 4 tags: title, name, email, etc. And I can basically just fill these up with the information that I've got from my form. I can just put them in the tags I want, and as soon as I'm done, I can say, hey, Umbraco package, PerplexMail package, make sure you send out this email. It has to be with this template, and it has to contain these tags, which basically does the same thing as what we've demonstrated just now with the form. It sends it out automatically. Nice. Except this time I've specified the tags myself manually.
Very nice.
Yeah, so it comes with a few overloads as well. You can actually send attachments as well, which are basically, it can be anything, any file or whatever you can dream up. And there's an extra overload in case you want to specify exactly which email addresses to use, which attachments to use. If you want to really have fine-grained detail on the email that gets sent out from your code. But generally speaking, we recommend to just use the tags and just specify them here and just send out the template like that.
Oh, brilliant. So what was the example or the scenario in regards to I generate some PDF on the fly automatically, say with some personalized content, and I want to send that out to that specific person? How would I go about doing that? So was that just, like you said, just an overload there? That is just the third parameter?
Yeah, so if we look here, it actually says as a third parameter, PerplexMail attachments. So basically, I can generate my own list of Perplex Mail attachments, and I can, they can be anything. Attachments is new list of Perplex Mail attachment, and I can just say, hey, I want to have an extra attachment, and it has to be of this content. So the attachment itself, you can send as many attachments with one email if you want. But for example, you can say, I want to make sure it's an Umbraco node ID, a media ID that I already have. Or I say, hey, it needs to be this file on the disk. Or, hey, I have a file stream for you that I got.
Okay, yeah.
So
that would be definitely useful from something that's getting generated on the fly.
Yep. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so that's as far as the code goes. I don't know if you had any more questions about that.
No, not in regards to how we would fire off an email using the code. It looks relatively straightforward.
Yeah, so there was one tiny feature that I still wanted to show.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so basically, like you can see here, you have you can preview an email, but when a customer receives an email in their client software, they sometimes want to say, hey, I want to make sure I can view this email in a browser. So we've included a tag as well, which you can include to actually render a link which the user can visit to check out the email that gets sent to him online. So if I were to check the HTML here briefly, you see here it says #web version. This is a special tag that you can include to make sure that a URL gets rendered, which the user can then follow to actually see the email online. So if we're actually to look into the footer, let me see if I got the example here. I can actually just send another one out.
So I was going to say, only if your name is
Wouter. Exactly. So if I send out another demo email to myself, submit, it's sent. Probably take a sec. Let me see what's holding it up. So I can see it got sent out just now.
Okay.
So that's definitely up. There we go. So you see here, the web version email gets sent to me, and it's basically URL. So I can just type in whatever I want in the link itself, the text, and all I have to do in the href, the actual location where I have to put the URL, I can just say, hey, render the URL here. I can click on the link, it opens in the browser, and I can see the email here. So yeah, that's pretty nifty as well.
Yeah, that's very nice.
And if I actually were to look at the statistics tab, I actually see, hey, my email just got viewed, and someone just looked at the web version. So I can actually filter by people that have seen the web version, for example.
Do you track the count for the web version separately?
Yeah, every event is a separate stat that gets tracked. So view, click, web version, etc.
Okay, so yeah, the only reason why I ask is that normally sometimes web versions normally get shared on Twitter or they get passed around externally. I was just wondering if you kept a track of how many times this was opened via the web link of it, so to speak. It was opened 10 times by the web version, and it was viewed in their email twice or something.
Yeah, you could check that. Currently, we don't display that information in the email itself, because generally speaking, you just want to see. But you could actually customize and say, hey, I want to see how many times it got viewed. If you were to look in the database, there's a separate tab or separate table where this sort of stuff gets logged. The Perplex Mail Statistics tab, which is the second table that gets included in your installation. Basically, every time an action takes place, it says, hey, which email was it?
Yeah.
That's that email log. It corresponds to the email log, so not the email node itself. but the actual log, so you can see which email it was, which action took place, was there a specific value, for example, a URL. If we click on a URL, it actually tracks which one it was, when did it happen, the IP and the user agent. So it's pretty basic, but you can actually just query and do your own thing there if you want to do it.
Nice. No, that's very, very neat. So a couple of questions just come in whilst we've been chatting. So Mike asks again, I noticed that Perplex Mail is installed in the content tree. What would happen if a website visitor tried to browse to /Perplex Mail?
Well, basically, the Perplex Mail node doesn't have a template. So that means if you visit this page, you actually would just get a 404 page. As long as you don't set up any template, the user won't be able to see anything.
Okay, and I presume that goes for all child nodes as well.
Yeah, it's pretty much a default Umbraco behavior.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I suppose that's a segue question from myself. Why was the decision for this to be in the content tree and maybe not as its own custom section and custom tree?
We've thought about that before as well. But the main thing with Umbraco is really that when you place things in the node tree, you have so many default features that you wouldn't be able to just customize yourself. For example, the rollback feature is an important one. If someone screwed something up, I can just roll back. I can see the transition or the history for the node. I can see who changed something when. Another important thing is, for example, if you have your website and you have a form, maybe you want to make sure you keep everything in Umbraco as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So instead of saying in your code like I'm going to send out node ID 1234, what you want to do is make a property called email picker. Which you then set up on your form, and you can pick your email, and you don't have to do any custom shenanigans. And the content manager can do anything he wants to do. He can just send out another email if he says, "Hey, there's a new template. I'm going to use this." Okay, no programmer intervention is required.
No, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, there's definitely some thought that's been put into it behind it. So Ben McKean asks, would it be possible to extend it so it's able to store other values in Perplex tables? For example, a member ID that you sent the email to.
So currently, we don't really support customization like that. But the main thing we want to do is make the package completely open source. We want to make sure it gets on GitHub. So anyone that says, I want to customize the way Perplex Mail handles things, you could go ahead and do that. Awesome. We kind of want to make it so in the basics you would be able to, for example, give your own context, like a session ID or something that you can send it with an email. But currently that's not possible. But it is on the wish list basically.
Oh, okay, awesome. I suppose that then leads nicely into is this already on GitHub?
No, it's currently not on GitHub yet. We first really wanted to make sure that the package got put up on R. If you go to R Umbraco, you can already find a Perplex Mail package. We wanted to make sure we got the initial bugs out of the way first. Get a little bit of feedback on see how people felt about it, and we're going to be releasing this on GitHub in the very near future.
Awesome. So yeah. So you're open to suggestions and feedback and pull requests by the sounds of it.
Yeah, definitely. If anyone has any good suggestions or requests, or maybe they think something we've built wasn't really convenient, or we're completely open to any kind of feedback.
Awesome. I suppose it's getting close to an hour, but is there anything else you want to kind of talk about before we wrap up?
No, I think I've really went over all the basics, and I would really say if anyone has any questions about the package, feel free to contact me. You can check us out on the R Umbraco as well. You can just leave a message on the forum, and we read it all the time. So if you post something, we'll always be on top of things.
Awesome. So I suppose that leaves us to wrap up. But one more thing. It seems like it's been well received. So Ben McKean and quite a few other people say this looks like a great package, one of those that you'll end up installing every time. So yeah, definitely well done. It's something that I will definitely consider looking at for every installation going forward as well.
Yeah, I really hope I've given a good impression of the package. And like I've said, we've been using it for a long time for all our websites. I really hope other people will enjoy it the same.
Yeah, no, thank you for spending the time with me today. And it was great talking to you. And hopefully catch up with you very, very soon.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks for your time.
No problem. Catch you later. Thanks.
See you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.